Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm usually in a room full of 8 to 10 college students, so this is a little bit of a different venue for me. I'm going to talk about what I do and why I do it and why I think it's important that I do it. And then we also have some sex questions that we'll be answering, or I'll be answering, I guess. Yeah, so hopefully no one is offended by dirty words, because I was told I could swear as much as I want. So I will be saying lots of dirty things. I don't have slides, because it just didn't work out, but I do have my visual aids, so if I'm boring, you can look at these. I also just have a hard time talking about anything without having vibrators nearby, so I brought them. And then if you guys are really good, I'll show you my fuckable foot when we're done. So early to bed, like Kim said, is a feminist sex toy store that I opened in 2001. I know you already said that, but I don't know how to start without saying that. I opened the store because I was a frustrated consumer. I was in my mid-20s and had met the love of my life, and early on in the relationship, she suggested that perhaps we needed a dildo. And I said, okay. And I was a good shopper. I had never had a sex toy before, but I took this not very lightly. I decided I was going to get the best fucking dildo I could find. I also conveniently worked in an office, so was able to abuse large amounts of company time to do my research back in the day. So I did online research, and this is like 1998 when the internet was like a baby, and all you could really find online when it came to sex toys, besides like super gross stuff, when you're looking for good stuff, like beautiful illustrations of what the item would be. So my first couple experiences buying things online were kind of off-putting. 8 inches looks a lot bigger in real life than it does in a rendered drawing on a website. I had a hard time finding a harness to fit my luscious ass, and so I decided to take my shopping experience to, I was going to say to the streets, but I would say just to sex toy stores. Anybody got a dildo? So I started shopping locally, and as a kind of angry lesbian, I had high expectations that my needs would be met immediately, but they weren't. So, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a sex toy store before, but 90% of them now, well, no, let's just say 80% of them now are vastly different than they were 10, 15 years ago. But when I started shopping for sex toys, the nicest sex toy store was still creepy. They were still set up not to support the wonderful pleasures of sex, but to sell crap at inflated prices to people who ostensibly were uncomfortable purchasing it, so they weren't going to complain about how much it cost. So when you would walk into these stores, and there are still stores like this, especially if you go on the side of the road on the way up to Milwaukee or downtown Chicago on Hubbard Street, you can still get some good old-fashioned creepy sex toy store action. But you'd walk into the sex toy stores, and there's just a wall of pussies. And no disrespect towards pussies, I love them, but it's a little off-putting when you're some like young woman who's looking for some self-pleasure, and you're finding this like pubic hair and plastic sea of ickiness. There's porn galore, like the kind of porn that is, not necessarily what you want to look at all the time. And then there's like every vibrator ever made in the entire world on a wall, all in its plastic packaging, all looking like it's, like appealing to the lowest common creepy denominator. You're making and manufacturing these toys for women's pleasure, yet they are packaged and marketed clearly towards some guy who's going to buy it for his girlfriend and think that that's going to make things all better. So I was just staring at this wall of vibrators the first time I bought a vibrator, and baffled. I didn't know what the difference was. You couldn't touch them, you couldn't turn them on. There's like some 18-year-old guy eating nachos working there. I was not going to ask about my vagina. And so I just grabbed the pink one, of course, or one of the pink ones. In fact, everything's pink, so. But I grabbed one of the pink ones, and I was embarrassed. It was very difficult for me, but I got home, and I tried my vibrator, and I didn't like it, and I didn't really understand it, which I know sounds silly in retrospect, but there's lots of people who go home and get their vibrators and don't understand them. But I have a really good work ethic. My parents raised me to try and try again. And so I finally got the hang of it, and I decided that, like tattoos, you can't just have one, you have to start a giant collection of sex toys. So I kept shopping, because I kept wanting more, and I kept sort of, you know, finding new interests, avenues. But I kept running into these experiences where because I was doing a lot of research on my own, on company time. And so I would go locally and I would ask, do you have like this brand, or do you have this type of toy? Where are your 100% silicone body safe toys? And people would just like, I don't know, we don't have those. Here, look at this expensive thing that people like. So I continually got frustrated, and I knew there were women-oriented, friendly, happy sex toy stores in California, in New York. Even Madison's had one called A Woman's Touch since, I think, the 90s, maybe even earlier. And Chicago was just like way behind in times. So all we had was creepy sex toy stores. I also, at the same time, was in graduate school, and my artwork had pretty much consisted at that point of going to my studio and crying. So I was sort of like, all right, I gotta think about what's going on next, because I don't want to work in this office the rest of my life, and I don't enjoy crying in my studio every day, and it's really not a way to make money. Although you know, the right marketing maybe, but watch the lady cry. So I started thinking about this idea of why isn't there a sex toy store in Chicago that's really cool and friendly? And then I had what I think Oprah would refer to as my aha moment when I was shopping for a particular type of lube. Side note, you all have some lube on your chair. It is a wonderful silicone lube locally made by a company called Uberlube, who provided us with samples. Their glass vials, don't drop them. We already did and broke one. But it's really good for any part of your body. It can also defrizz your hair. I can tell you more about lube later, but it's one of my favorite lubes. So we're shopping for lube, and we were at a sex toy store that sells sex toys and accessories. And we asked the woman working in the sex toy store what a good lube for our needs would be. And she looked at us like we were just disgusting. I mean, it's a sex toy store. It couldn't have been the worst question she ever got asked. I know, I answer them every day. They're a lot worse than that. And she took this bottle of lube out of a glass container, like everything was in a glass-fronted countertop. And I couldn't see the price, I couldn't see the ingredients. She like put it on the countertop, kind of like pushed it towards us without looking at us. It was like, ugh, I don't know, people like this. And I was like, motherfucker, this is ridiculous. I am a nice lady. I am asking a really good question, and you're making me feel like some old pervert in a not a good way. So that was when I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna quit grad school. I'm gonna get a lot of credit cards, and I'm gonna open up Chicago's first woman-owned sex toy store, because someone's gotta fucking do it. Oh, thank you. It terrified my mother. Oh my God, that poor woman. She didn't even, I mean, and you have to think about this. So this is like 1999 or 2000 is when I quit my job. And it still was kind of an unheard of thing. Some people knew about like Babeland, which used to be Toys in Babeland, and Good Vibrations in San Francisco. But nobody thought, I mean, sex toy stores were not at all cool and hip and nice. Oprah didn't talk about sex toys. Sex and the City was still in its infancy, maybe, I don't know when that started. But they weren't talking about sex vibrators in Red Book magazine yet. So it was still really kind of unusual to think about opening a sex toy store. My mom, bless her, really struggled at first, but then she overheard me telling one of her cousins what I was planning on doing. And she changed her mind kind of instantly once she heard me talk about it in a way that I guess started smarter than I've been talking to her about it. She was an early investor, and still is, and hopefully will outlive her investment, or won't outlive her investment. Either way, I love her. I hope she never dies. But I owe her a lot of money. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I knew what to do with sex toys, but I didn't know what the hell how to run a business, or how to find out about this industry. And this is like, you couldn't just go on now you can go on the internet and you can probably type in wholesale sex toy suppliers and bing, you're done, you have a business. But back then it was a lot harder. I had to like go to stores and buy sex toys and look at the manufacturer and write letters on paper to the manufacturers and try to get information. But I did it, and I managed to find a building that would rent to me, which again, back then, no one would rent to me. And I opened the doors, and immediately women were interested. It's been very interesting to see sort of the gender divide. When I was first even talking about it to people, back when I was young and in my 20s, I would go to bars and get drunk and talk to everybody. Every woman I brought up the idea with said, oh my God, that's a great idea, here's my number, call me when you open. Every guy I talked to said, do you know what you're doing? Don't you know that costs money? How are you gonna open your own business? You don't know what, blah, blah, blah. Who needs that? So thank you, mansplaining me to force me to do this. So that even led me to be more angry lesbian feminist, but also to be like, okay, right, so all these women want it, all these men don't get it. Clearly, this isn't gonna change unless women get involved and start making changes to what is available to us. So I wanted my store to be friendly and nice and feminist, and I call it a feminist sex toy store, mainly because I am a feminist. It is my sex toy store. But also because I wanted to run it on feminist principles. I wanted everybody with any gender to walk through the door and feel like their sex life was supported. That we didn't yuck people's yum, as long as they don't touch us while they're telling us about it. That we would listen to people's questions and not give them that face and not treat them with disrespect. And that we would support our communities and make our sex toy store, which I worked really hard to do, is to make it more than just a retail store. I mean, obviously we sell sex toys in order to make money and whatnot, but what I really wanted to do was have it also be a place where people could come for information, even if they weren't buying sex toys. So we have a reference library. I do a lot of talks like this, although usually more involved with specific sex toys. We're not really going to get there today. And to also just be an active part of my community, to support people financially when I can, to open our space for benefits, to do whatever we can to kind of create a healthier, sex-positive, feminist, but also just community in general in Chicago. And so, I think it's worked. The industry has changed drastically since I was first involved in it. And I think a lot of that has been partially due to the, I can never say this, proliferation, thank you, is that right? Yeah, of women-owned and feminist sex toy stores. There's now little feminist sex toy stores kind of all over the place. Chicago's scene has shifted drastically. Even the toy stores that were kind of creepy before are a lot less creepy now, which is great. I think the more access people have to sex toys in a positive way, the better. We are talking about vibrators on TV. We're talking about them in women's magazines. You can buy some at the grocery store, although I don't recommend it because they kind of suck. But that's accessible. I mean, for somebody who can't even step foot through a sex toy store, it's good to have a vibrator if you need one. So if you can get one at Jewel Osco, then go for it. Although you always could, you probably know. There was always that aisle of massagers where most people's first sex toy probably came from. Whoops. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I do at the store. One of the things that I've learned over the years, and one of the things I think's been really helped to solidify my mission, is the more I talk to people and the more I deal every day with people who are coming at us with their problems. I mean, certainly there's a great proportion of people who shop at our store who walk in, I want this vibrator, I want this dildo, I want this butt plug, I want whatever. It's happy, it's easy, it's not a big painful thing. But what we have become is, like, for a lot of people, the first, like, we would like an opening to them to ask questions they've never known where to go before to ask. We have started conversations with customers about lube and ended up talking to them about their sexual abuse they've never disclosed before, which is both awesome and uncomfortable. We have resources for people, so we're really prepared for almost everything. We have people who come to us just, who walk in off the street just to ask a question about their vagina. They don't know where to go ask. And we're there to answer those vagina questions. I have my favorite story about how people use this in a weird way, is I had a woman walk into the store one time and say, I'm coming here before I go to the emergency room. And I was like, okay, that's not a good idea. And she's like, well, I just was at my chiropractor. And I'm like, okay, where is this going? I have these Benoit balls stuck in my vagina. And I was like, okay, we don't really do retrievals. Like, I'm not sure what you want. But so we started talking. She's like, look, I thought maybe you would have something I could put in my vagina to get it out. So Benoit balls are these little tiny metal balls that have this kind of cachet in our culture as being somehow fun. They're not that fun, but whatever, people like them. And if you don't know, but like sort of around the cervix, there's these sort of kind of pockets you can lose things in if you try hard enough. And she had gotten one of them stuck up there. And so we went through our collection of stuff and we found this $15 vibrator that had a little hook at the top, and like, why don't you try it? And so, it was meant to hug someone's clitoris, but it turns out it was the perfect shape and size to remove wayward vaginal balls. So she called me like 10 minutes later. She's like, I did it, it's out. I was like, great. Please don't ever use us instead of the emergency room again. Side note, you can lose things in your ass really easily that you can't get out with another vibrator. And don't ever use a vibrator to try and get something out of your ass that you lost, because you'll just end up with one of those things where next thing you know there's 6 vibrators in your ass. So be really careful about what you put in your ass. This is my mission in life, is to make sure everybody knows that lube solves most of your problems, and you can lose things in your ass. But also, that sex is about pleasure. Like, I feel like, especially when I'm talking to not high school kids, they don't let me talk to high school kids, which is fine. Nobody wants me around their high school kids. Except for everybody who thinks they're going to have a high school kid someday, when apparently they're going to send them all to me for the talk, which is great because it'll involve a lot of dildos. So one of the things that I think continues to sort of sadden me, and that I feel like, there's moments when, Amazon selling sex toys, don't buy them from Amazon, they're ripoffs. Amazon selling sex toys, you can get them at the grocery store, there's stores like mine everywhere. I think, are we done? Am I almost done with this? Like, is this sort of running its course? Do I have a purpose in the world anymore? Which I really hope is not the case, because I don't know what the hell else I do. But then I start to talk to young people in particular, but also people of all ages, and I realize that we're still in this hypersexualized culture. We have access to so much information, we have access to so much fucking porn, and yet people still have really screwy ideas about sex and their bodies, and they don't know how their bodies work, and they don't know what sex is about. Now, granted, sex can be about anything you want it to be. For lots of people, it's about making a baby. For lots of people, it's about making $1. But for lots of people, it's about sharing pleasure and intimacy with somebody else, or yourself, depending on the day. And I think we kind of forget that. I think that we often lose sight of the fact that sex is about pleasure, sensuality, can be about intimacy. But we focus so much on achievement. I mean, how many surveys have there been like, what's the average amount of time you should have sex? What's the average size penis? How many orgasms should I have in a week, or whatever it is? So that we set people up for these goals to try and reach. And our culture feeds into this amazingly. Like, we call it achieving orgasm. We can say, we gave someone an orgasm. We talk about stamina and how long you can last. We sell numbing creams that numb your dick, right? So you can stick your dick in somebody and move it around longer, but you can't feel it as much. Like, what? I don't get that. Now, I don't have a penis. I've never had a penis. I'm sorry. I would like one for like 1 weekend a year, just to kind of try things out. Someday, maybe I can like grow my own in a petri dish. And, I don't even know where I was talking about that. Oh, right. So we're so focused on how long we can have sex for, how good we can, all these like weird benchmarks, that we forget that what about the idea of having 3 minutes of sensational sex, followed by some, oral jobs if your partner isn't done yet or whatever. Instead of having this, what's the point of having sex for a longer period of time if you can't feel it as well? We have all kinds of awful creams and gels. This industry is full of crap that is feeding into people's insecurities, encouraging people to do sort of less safe behavior and to communicate less with their partners. Why do we have numbing creams? Why do we have vaginal tightening creams, which basically just dry out the vagina and have capsaicin? Is that the thing that's in peppers? Capsaicin? To inflame your vaginal tissues. So your partner is thinking that your pussy's tighter, but really it's just inflamed and dry. Yay, how fun is that? But at least, I don't know, what, you have some, achievement that you have tight pussy. Kegel exercises. And that there's just so much, and there's so much snake oil out there that's designed to like increase libido, when there's so little attention paid to why would somebody have a low libido? What would you do in order to make somebody have a higher libido? How can you talk to your partner and figure out what your partner likes instead of trying to come to the sex toy store and ask a woman, like, why doesn't my girlfriend like it when I do this? I don't fucking know. I never had sex with your girlfriend. Seriously, what can I get to make my girlfriend like sex? That's a question I love. Maybe a shower, a better attitude, I don't know. Maybe she likes sex, maybe she doesn't like it with you. But we don't talk to each other about sex. We think that sex is this magical thing that you see in the movies where your clothes come off magically, you put something in a hole, you move it around for like 30 seconds, everyone has an orgasm with no one touching anything. Everyone's satisfied, and then you have a cigarette or whatever. Sex takes work, in some ways. You have to talk to your partner, you have to communicate with your partner, you have to touch your body, I mean, let's be honest, there's kind of a great sort of gender divide when it comes to things like that too. People who are born with penises usually figure out how to use them, I don't know, by the time they're 7, 8, 12, 15, I don't know. I've never had an adult man walk in the store and ask me where his balls are, and if he would, I would think he was just trying to get me to touch him. I have had a man try to get me to walk him through how to use a masturbation sleeve on the phone. I was like, I'm not falling for that. You put your dick in it, dude. Call me back later. But I have women all the time who come in who've never had an orgasm, who don't know where their clitoris is, who don't understand that there's nothing wrong with them because they need clitoral stimulation in order to have an orgasm. That is this crazy notion we have in our culture that there's something dysfunctional about women who require actual stimulation of their parts with like fingers, tongues, sex toys, something like that. Sex toys don't replace people. If I had a wish for the world, it would be that everybody would just fucking lay off the idea that you could have a boyfriend or a vibrator and never the two shall meet. We get a lot of women who are like, oh man, I don't need that. I have a boyfriend. And I'm like, girl, can your boyfriend do this? I actually don't have anything good there. And maybe you don't. And not everyone loves sex toys. I fully admit that, there's probably someone out there who doesn't like them. But we close ourselves off to new experiences because we're so afraid of what that might be. Is a vibrator going to replace a partner? If that partner sucks so bad that a vibrator replaces them, then get the fucking vibrator, get rid of that partner. Is well, porn is a whole other issue. I can't really, that's too controversial. But is it somehow bad to bring into your partner relationship something that is not natural? We have a lot, people are worried they won't be able to have natural sex anymore after they've used a sex toy. Nothing we do is natural. We're sitting on metal chairs, reading donuts. Those aren't natural, who cares if you need a vibrator to have an orgasm? And it's common that sometimes people start using sex toys and they become not necessarily necessary, but they're so pleasurable and they make sex feel better that it's hard to kind of give them up. Some people use vibrators and sex toys when they're alone, and then when they're with their partner, they don't want or need them. Sometimes people have a really hard time, particularly women, have a really hard time having an orgasm without a sex toy. They start using sex toys, and all of a sudden, they're like, wait, this is so much easier, and it feels better, and it's a bigger bang. Why would I want to give that up? But then they don't want to freak out their partners. But the truth of the matter is, and I hope that we would all approach sex with our partners, where if something makes sex feel better for your partner, and it's not dangerous or sharp or whatever, shouldn't we encourage that as opposed to being threatened by that? I mean, it's one thing to be like, girl, I need a vibrator because you suck. But it's another thing to be like, hey, this is really fun. What if we made it more fun by integrating a vibrator, a butt plug, or I would really love it if you stuck this in my whatnot, you know? Because it's fun and we're having sex and it's about pleasure and it's not about, you know, me being insulted that I can't provide everything for you at the same time. I mean, most people only have like 2 hands, you know? I mean, there's only so many places you can touch on a body at once, if you're lucky. So I think that, you know, in addition to just trying to sort of normalize this, I would like people to think that, you know, vibrators are there whether you want them or not, it's fine, but they're not something to be ashamed of. I'm not saying, like me, you have to walk down the street carrying them without your bag, because I always end up with vibrators in my, you know, what are those things, bike helmets or whatever it is. But that we should not be ashamed that we can take control of our sex lives and honor our sex lives and find the things that feel good to us. And maybe that's not a sex toy, maybe that's just a particular way of humping the couch, or, you know, I understand a bag of Vaseline in between 2 couch cushions can feel really good, so you don't have to get too fancy. But just honoring the things that feel good on our bodies, that aren't dangerous, and of course done consensually always. And enjoying and exploring those ideas and making it so that there's never a shame to walk into a sex toy store. There's never shame at, you know, being the person who at the airline, the TSA line, has their vibrator examined. So what? Fuck you, that's my vibrator. What do you think about it? Oh, you want one of your own? Sure, yeah. I, of course, am the only fucking person who never gets stopped at TSA for my vibrators. I shove my bags full of them. More than I could ever need for a weekend at my grandma's. Actually, I'm just kidding, my grandma's dead. My grandma, who incidentally, I don't know how I know this, and this always gives me inspiration to keep working hard at my job. She was 76 when she had her first orgasm. Now, how we know this, I still can't figure out. She told someone who told someone, and this was before I had my store. I don't know quite how that would have gone over with them, but what I miss asking is, what happened after 50-some years of having sex with the same person that you finally had an orgasm? Like, that must be some elixir. Like, what crazy move did Grandpa try? You know, I think a lot of people have things they might want to go back and ask their grandparents, their dead parents. That's the one I want to ask my grandma. What? How'd you have that orgasm? But her experience is not completely uncommon. I talked, you know, like I said, I talked to women all the time who were in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who's never had orgasms. So she was just extra special, and thank God she had one before she died. She didn't die, you know, that many years later. Oh, I want to make sure I have time for questions. Yeah, so that's what I do, and sex is great, and now I'm going to answer some questions. I also, I don't know, I feel like I have to show you something, but I'm not going to right now. Okay. I hope these are good. How does a woman safely introduce butt plugs with a partner? Oh, without a partner? How does a woman safely introduce butt plugs without a partner? Is this like a W backslash O? I don't know. Let's just talk about butt plugs for a second. So, first of all, I like to talk about butt safety, like I mentioned a lot. When they talk about, you know, you can Google things people lose in their ass. Not all of them are true, but a lot of them are true. There's a lot of stigma in our culture about butt sex, particularly actually among men who identify as heterosexual because they don't want to, I don't know, we have this weird idea that it makes you gay or something. So there's a lot of stigma on anal sex, and so a lot of people do things that are not good, safe types of things in order to satisfy their anal urges, but without having to admit to someone they have them. So the one thing you always want to be 100% sure about when you're putting something in your or someone else's butt is that it's butt safe. Now this guy here is, you know, is an advanced model, but it has a flanged base. This guy here, which probably your mother had, is not butt safe. And you might think, no, I'm not going to lose that in my ass. I got a really good grip on it. Your sphincter is so much more powerful than your hands. And next thing you know, you're at the emergency room. And they're like, oh, this again. So if you want to introduce a butt plug either with or without a partner, the important thing to do is buy a butt plug. Don't just go all willy-nilly with something, a household object or your vibrator you have for some other reason. Go with something small. You definitely, most people want to start with something not much bigger than a finger. You can get little ones easily. And make sure it has a flange base, and go with something made of 100% silicone. 100% silicone is a material that you can sterilize by boiling. It's just going to be safer in general. It's not going to harbor bacteria. You can also go for stainless steel or glass, but I usually recommend that kind of as your second level toy because they're more expensive and you want to know what size you want. An $80 butt plugs, like stainless steel butt plug that's too big or too small, is kind of like, wah, wah, because we're not taking that shit back. If the question, yeah, I guess it was, and you want to use lube. Oh, here's the thing about lube. I will talk to you about this 100 times. There is a federal law that states you have to use commercial-based lubricant when you have anal sex. Well, there's not really yet, but I'm working on it. If you put anything in anybody's butt, you have to use commercially prepared lubricant. Do not spit on someone's ass and think that's gonna do the job. I don't care what movie you were just watching or whatever. Those people who get spit on and then fucked in the ass, they have pre-preparations going on. They didn't just walk in off the street and have someone spit on them. So, you want to use lube, you want to start slow, you want to make sure you're checking in with your partner if you're doing it with your partner. Never just be like, I'm just going to shove this in there, I'll just not pay attention to you. You want to, how's that feeling, how's that going, do you like this, blah, 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 which of course you should be doing all the time when you're having sex with somebody. But definitely starting slow and using lots and lots of lube is really important. Okay. There's some controversy in the Midwest about what a chode is. Can you weigh in? Short, wide penis or not? I cannot weigh in on this. I don't know if it's where I grew up, but I always thought the chode was the same thing as the taint. And I have been corrected. So I think short, wide penis might be the right answer, but I am not the person to ask because I think of a chode as, I don't know why I think of it as the taint, which is the perineum, which is the part in between your, if it taints your dick, it taints your ass. So I don't know. That'd be a good question maybe to talk about afterwards. What would be, does anybody have a disagreement that a chode is a short, fat penis? No. Okay, that wins. Any ways, tips to make dental dams more sexy? Oh, dental dams. So talked about, so little used. Dental dams, if you don't know, are a big piece of either latex or non-latex material that's used to cover a vulva or an ass for some licking. You can also use a condom that you cut in half to make a sort of square, and then you put it over a vulva or ass and you lick it. As far as making it more sexy, you could start developing a latex fetish. That would definitely make it more sexy. Putting something tasty on your side can be sexy. Some people find that putting like a little honey on the side of the person who's licking it feels good. Putting lube on the other side, so the person who's getting licked has more of a slick sensation. You don't want it to be too much draggy. Pretending it's sexy. Oh, this tastes so good. I love this sexy dental dam. You're so sexy when you're not sexually transmitting diseases. Actually, there's a book that we sell called You're So Sexy When You're Not Transmitting Sexually Transmitted Diseases. It's very cute. So yeah, so I would say there's not much you can do, but making it taste good and pretending it's sexy can really help. Coconut oil versus lube, would you mind? Okay, so coconut oil is becoming really popular, used as a lubricant, and we still have some questions about it. I'm a big fan of commercially based lube, commercially produced lube that is body safe. I think if you have a vagina, the one thing you want to look for with lube is that it's glycerin free and maybe paraben free. There's a lot of lubes out there that have ingredients that can be irritating to vaginas. If you have a dick, congratulations. Stick it in wherever you want, she'll be fine. Also, you have more power. But coconut oil, so what we've read and seen is that it's very safe to use as a lube. We in general recommend not putting oil in the vagina because it can prevent the vagina from cleaning itself out, and then it can promote bacterial infections. But coconut oil, for what has ingredients in it that are actually good for your vagina, and it's antibacterial or microbial or something like that, So it's supposed to be fine. I would hesitate to use coconut oil if you're using condoms, because I think it's incompatible with condoms, latex condoms. And I hesitate to use it with sex toys, because we don't know how coconut oil reacts to a lot of sex toys, unless you're using something that's like glass or steel. But I know more people are using it, and there's 2 companies, I think, that just came out with a line of coconut oil lubes that we'll be investigating. But then I also think, if they're just coconut oil and they're sold in a sex toy store, they cost like 4 times as much as going to Whole Foods, so I don't know if we'll carry them, because I really hate hosing people on that. It's like buying chocolate body paint at a sex toy store. You know what that is? That's Hershey's for $12. Seriously. Go get a bottle of Hershey's. Or Valrhona or something. But yeah, people are using it. My sister, who has, I shouldn't say that publicly, but whatever. Some people I know have access to all the free lube they want, still choose coconut oil. Suppose I am a virgin. Okay. What are some understated things I should know before engaging in a roller coaster of romance? Okay. Wow, I don't even know how to answer that question. Because I also feel like romance and virginity are 2 different things. If someone's a virgin, meaning I take this question to mean they haven't had penetrated sex, or they haven't put their penis in a vagina or had anything in their vagina or something like that. I don't know what that has to do really with romance. I feel uncomfortable answering this question right now. Can I pass? Okay, I'm gonna pass. I'll go back to this if I have time. I'm not very good at romance, I gotta tell you. I mean, don't tell my girlfriend I said that, but. How do I convince my girlfriend to have anal sex? Oh, Jesus Christ, if I had a fucking dollar for every time I got that question. Okay, so I'm assuming this means how do you convince your girlfriend to put your dick in her ass, right? You're not saying, how do I convince my girlfriend to Roger me up my ass? Seriously, every fucking day. That and how do I make my dick bigger? If someone wrote that in there, let me answer it right now. You don't. You don't. I have a good story on our blog about it. There's nothing you can do. You can spend a ton of money to make your dick bigger, but it's not gonna get any bigger. Although, I think this is hilarious. There's one technique for making your dick bigger called jelqing, which involves pulling your penis every day. Now, I ask you people, if pulling on your penis every day made it bigger, don't you think everyone would have giant penises? God, who the fuck comes up with these things? Anyways, all right, here's how you talk to your girlfriend about wanting to have anal sex. You don't try to convince her. Because I talk to women who come in and say, what do I do to get my boyfriend to stop pressuring me to have anal sex? You know, so you tell your girlfriend what you want. You say, I would like to put my dick in your ass. Or hopefully you say, I would like you to put your dick in my ass. Let's go get a dick for you. You check in with her, you see if she likes it. If she's not interested, you let it go. Or you say, well, how about this? You can put a butt plug in me, and then I can put a butt plug in you, and then we'll see where we go from there. Because one thing that makes you a much better anal fucker is if you've had something in your ass yourself. One of the things that happens with anal sex is that people don't know what they're doing. Receptive partners are doing it because someone convinced them to do it, or they're trying to be nice, or they're just, oh fine, you let me, I don't know, I can't even think of anything funny. But anyways, so what happens is people suffer through a lot of painful anal penetration because the receptive partner is like, yeah, sure, let's totally go for it. And their butt is like, no, I don't want that. And I tell you, your ass is smarter than you. I know you think you're pretty smart, but your butt knows when you don't want something. And even if your head's like, yeah, this is totally fine, I'm totally fine with it, there's a good chance your butt is gonna resist it. So don't agree to engage in anal sex unless you really want to. If you do, say, hey, let's just start with something small. Let's get a butt plug, let's get lots of lube, let's relax, let's have, something sexy to eat. Why don't you give me some orgasms first, or help me achieve orgasms first. But you have to let it go, because the truth of the matter is that if you push it, you're gonna possibly be damaged to her ass. If you numb her ass, or his ass, I should say, it did say girlfriend. They make a horrible product called Anal-Ease that's designed to numb somebody's butt so you can shove something in it when they're not enjoying it. Don't use that. I mean, I've had people who are receptive partners ask about it, but the truth of the matter is that anal sex starts to get dangerous when you are pushing too fast. Pain is your body's way of saying, slow the fuck down. So when you're engaging in anal sex, you shouldn't be checked out from that sensation, because that's when you're going to rip or tear your butt. So do your best, be really sweet, be really nice, maybe offer up something in return. I would like to fuck you in the ass. In return, I will, I don't know, lick your pussy for 24 hours straight, or whatever it is that they want. Or let you fuck me in the ass, which is becoming more and more popular. I think this Valentine's Day was guys getting up the ass Valentine's Day. I tell you what, we sold more beginning strap-on kits to heterosexual couples this Valentine's Day than I've ever seen in my life. But man, that's a common question. Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it? Well, assuming you're referring to some sort of sex drive kind of situation, but no, I don't think so. Like, dicks don't fall off if you don't use them. But there are very few people who would argue that, who would argue against maintaining some sort of sexual activity in order to kind of keep your body healthy, actually. Masturbation and orgasm are good for your bodies, as long as, again, you're not using anything sharp or caustic. But having orgasms is good for your body. It raises your heart rate, it releases endorphins, it increases, some people say it increases immunity because it moves the blood through your body. And it's good to have blood flowing through all your body. So yeah, it's good to have erections and ejaculate. It's good to have engorgements. I hate that word, but it's good to get blood flowing in your vulva and your vagina and your clitoris, all those things. So it is good to keep using your bodies. It's not like if you stop having sex for a while, all of a sudden your body's not going to work again. But there's a lot of theories too that when it comes to libido, that it kind of builds upon itself. So that if you, it's like if you, for whatever reason, have a dry spell or decide you don't have sex right now or whatever it is, and your libido kind of goes with you, so you're not interested in it, you're not doing it, you're not doing it, and then you meet somebody or something changes and you want to have sex. If you're kind of down here, it's a little big of a climb to get back up to having a more normal libido. Of course, this is all, sort of making this up. I'm not really making it up, but I'm not a doctor, just let me put it that way. But even if you're not having sex with somebody else, if you're masturbating, if you're having orgasms, it kind of keeps your libido a little bit more elevated and fluid, and so that if you do go in a situation where you're going back to like having sex with somebody else, you're going to find that it's not as hard of a climb to get kind of back into your normal sex routine or to feel like your libido is kind of raised. It does keep it just a little bit more even. So I would say there's no reason not to use it, but you're certainly not going to lose it. Just remember it's good for you. And young guys in their like 20s and 30s, if you can manage to ejaculate, I know it's hard, like 4 or 5 times a week, you can greatly reduce your risk of prostate cancer. So if you, for any reason, needed inspiration for jacking off, it's good for your health, you should do it. Of course, no one's done any studies to find that masturbation is good for women's health, but that's because no one cares about us. What is a safe porn site to use online? Any recos? Some recommendations, I'm assuming. Well, I don't know what safe you mean, but if you're looking for just sort of, like something that's not, I guess, assuming like spammy and creepy and weird, there's a lot of safe porn sites. What we know about and we focus on are porn sites that we consider to be ethical porn sites, places that we know treat their talent with respect and allow their talent to have input in what they're doing, directors that are making movies that they're not abusing their talent or anything like that. So actually, if you go to earlytobed.com and our website, we have a link to some video-on-demand sites where they have curated collections of both heterosexual and queer porn that's ethically made, ethically produced, and actually pretty hot. Like, there's a huge difference if you've seen like mainstream porn where it's a lot of just like, oh baby, and then dick slapping people's faces and stuff like that. Women love a good slap in their face with a dick. If you've ever, no one take that quote out of context, please. but ethical form for the most part tends to be, and that's, and, no disrespect, people like that, that's great, that's, totally fine, that's just a dime a dozen. But if you want to try and find porn that's more about like people engaging in sexual activity where you can kind of see there's some sort of connection, the orgasms are authentic, the people are really having orgasms, stuff like that. There's a couple studios like Blue Artichoke and Erica Lust, and this is for heterosexual stuff, that you can watch online. You can go through Pink Label TV, or you can go through earlytobed.com to find this stuff. It's out there. It's not a ton of stuff, but it's good. And we also rent movies at Early to Bed if you ever wanted to go the old-fashioned route in not your VCR. We did get rid of our VHS tapes like 2 years ago. But you can also rent DVDs if you're concerned about online stuff. I'm wrapping up. One more question. How do you introduce an extremely kinky fantasy to a lover? Kind of like that anal sex thing, you talk about it. Sometimes people are really nervous about talking about their fantasies, and I think it's a real disservice that we sort of do our partners and ourselves, but I know it's really hard. So I like to propose the idea of making like either checklists or just like some sort of writing it down in a way that makes you feel comfortable, like either, hey, I have an idea. Let's write down some of our sexual fantasies, we'll exchange them, and then we can mark up each other's paper. So I put down latex, pissing, tie me up, and something else. And then you exchange them, and you can cross off the ones you don't like, circle the ones you like, whatever you need to do with the other ones. Or you could just sit down and have a talk with somebody, like, I've been really interested in this idea. How do you feel about that? See where that conversation goes. I don't recommend just showing up one day, and pissing on someone or whatever it is. Like, congratulations. No, so I definitely recommend talking with somebody. But I also really think that it's important if someone is telling you their sexual fantasies, even if you're not into them and you don't want to participate in them, to not make this face and to not overly judge people. I mean, the thing is that fantasies are one thing, what people actually do are another things, and lots of people do find their sexual fantasies don't necessarily play out in what they want to actually do. Hello, 3 ways. The biggest disaster of modern society lots of times. But that by talking about them, at least you're getting a dialogue going, and if you're a receptive partner, and maybe you'll say, okay, well, I'll trade you one for mine for one of yours. Like, I would really like to beat the crap out of you. And in exchange for that, I'll let you pee on me in the bathtub. So let's see how that goes and see who likes what they're doing. I do recommend peeing in the bathtub the first couple times because it's easier to clean up. So I guess that's it. So thank you guys very much. I will, oh here, let me just show you my foot though. So as was pointed out, I run a website of screwy sex toys, and I just have to travel with her all the time. So this is a tiny foot that has a vulva in the bottom for fucking, because as you know, every man with a foot fetish really wants to fuck a tiny wedge sandal and see his dick come out of an ankle. But this, I just love this as an indicator of, I don't know why I have to show that, but I just love it. So this is my tiny foot. If you want to come stick your finger in her, I'll be up here for a few minutes, so be gentle. Thank you.